It was the great, groundbreaking American author, playwright and poet James Baldwin who said that the reader is someone who desires to conquer the great wilderness of himself. That is to suggest that books and literature give us the ability to be an explorer. They light up those parts of the cave we hardly knew existed, and they help to illuminate the parts that we did. All the knowledge in the world is readily available online, meaning that as educators nowadays we need to instill in young people a desire to learn, to ignite curiosity so that they can make something of that wilderness that Baldwin refers to. There are numerous demands on your time, but the reading of books has to be made an important part of that time. Time spent reading is never time wasted. Young people desire to understand, and that curiosity comes naturally, but as teachers and as parents, we must nurture it. I love the part in Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird when Scout says that until she feared she would lose it, she never loved to read. She says, one does not love breathing. I imagine that every reader watching this will identify with that idea. All I know is that being the last of the pre-internet generation, I learned virtually everything I know from books, and I don't really know who I would be without them. As a teen, reading books was like trying on new clothes, trying out different centuries and different cultures, and fostering this love in young people is what we try to do because we believe and understand its value. It certainly bothers me to hear any talk that books have less importance now. It wasn't always so. I read recently that in the 10th century, the Grand Vizier of Persia reputedly took his collection of 117,000 books with him on the backs of camels wherever he went, so he always felt at home. A bit of an extreme version of the mobile libraries you'll see in rural Persia. Going back even further in time, kings of ancient Egypt established libraries in their furthest flung territories because they believed that libraries were pillars of knowledge. They had the words clinics of the soul inscribed over the entrances. The school has made a significant investment into our library with its modern and clean design. And again, delving back into history, I love the idea of libraries which communicate through their architecture. You'll see Victorian libraries funded by industrial wealth by the great philanthropists like Andrew Carnegie. The grandeur of these buildings speak to us now. They say, we value books and we value the people who want to read them. Carnegie himself said that a library outranks any other one thing a community can do to benefit its people. It is a never-failing spring in the desert. Certainly having a wonderful, modern and bright school library teeming with exciting books tells the students here that we value books and we value the people who want to read them. But turning from all this historical reflection on the wonders of books and libraries, I'd like you now to imagine a tech-filled dystopian world in which there are no books and there are no libraries. A world in which humankind has deliberately done away with centuries of accrued paper-based knowledge. I wondered what that world would look like and what the late great Dr. Seuss would make of an intellectually barren world with nowhere to borrow books. Maybe at the far edge of town where a secret garden grew, where a cherry orchard blew and a faraway tree hid a terrified shrew, was the street of the ruined library. And deep in the orchard, some people said, if you look deep enough you can still see today where the library once stood for all of childhood before somebody urged it away. What was this library and why was it there? And why was it forgotten and never repaired? All those marvellous stories gone into thin air? Ask her. She knows. You won't find this librarian, so don't knock at her door. She lives with her books, reads by the fire, she gobbles up stories that provoke and inspire, and on special warm days, like this one in March, she peeks out of the shutters and sometimes she speaks and tells how the library might end its days. She'll tell you perhaps if you're willing to stay, so pull up your seats and listen with care, for she'll tell a sad tale so that it won't come true.
Imagine a place that bore such an affliction, had no poetry, drama, or great works of No Tolstoy, no Dickens, no Orwell, no Poe.
Or Homer, or Tolkien, no Burns or Burroughs.
No Pushkin, no Lovecraft, Nabokov, Whitman.
Or Dickinson, Steinbeck, Flaubert or Darwin.
No Beckett or Byron, no Balzac or Golding.
No Stevenson, Conrad, Hardy or Kipling.
No Lawrence or Nietzsche, Marquez or Heller.
No Dumas, Fitzgerald, no Atwood or Stoker.
No Molière, Williams, no Ibsen or Miller.
Or Shelley or Melville, de Beauvoir or Chandler. No Pullman, no Rowling, no Austen or Proust.
Or the great man of wonder, the late Dr. Seuss.
These names light up the bookish dark, their intellect a guiding spark. Imagine a shadow world without such tomes, where people without books are left to roam.
Now I'll tell you what happened.
She says, sounding grey.
How the library got lifted and taken away. It all started way back. Such a long time back. Way back in the days when people read books. Before there were mobiles and people got hooked. Before there was TikTok and kids got obsessed. And going outside would make kids get stressed. Those were the days, those glorious days when reading had kudos and intellect paid. Children were found in the library reading. And teens in high school with books that were feeding their brains with the knowledge they'd need to succeed. They knew just how important it was to read. Kids!
Librarian shouted, gave a sawdusty look.
I'm the librarian, I speak for the books. I speak for the books, for the tomes have no tongues. And I'm asking you kids at the top of my lungs.
She was very upset as she shouted and blasted, for books were her life and were fun while they lasted.
Look, librarian,
A kid said.
there's no cause for alarm. I've downloaded an app and I'm doing no harm. I'm reading instant Twitter, emojis are faster. I don't see why tech speak is such a disaster.
Oh.
M.
G.
She lowered her glasses and gave him a stare. But he was back on his phone and forgot she was there. The wise old librarian who'd once been so cared for didn't seem to be needed so much anymore. But she didn't give up, for she knew what she sought, to inspire kids to read and to do what they ought, to come back to her with a love of the word, but to meet them halfway did not seem absurd. She wants them to see that reading's not crusty, that modern-day books are not old and dusty. She can't see her library just falling apart. She wants to revive it with all of her heart.
But now,
Says librarian.
now that you're here, what we must do seems so perfectly clear. We rebuild the library, buy loads of tomes, and maybe some tech will feel right at home. For tech's not our enemy. Tech is our friend. Stories are brilliant no matter where penned. CDs surpassed records and even cassettes, and now we hear music all over the net. This is reality. This is what's true. Reading and tech is no catch-22.
Librarian stood. She knew their salvation. She rose to speak with great determination.
The more that you read, the more things you will know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go. So come to the library. Come see it's packed with stories and poems and books brimmed with facts.
Librarian pointed right to herself. She said,
Above all, be true to yourself.